I just saved 90% of my time, or I just lowered my expenses by 35%. They're gonna be like, wow. And that's what I'm trying to do. Slap people with the fear, offer the solution so that you can adjust and be ready for these changes.
Welcome back to Digital Dominance. Lately, it seems like everybody and their mom is talking about AI. For some, it's revolutionary. For others, it's overblown hype. People are throwing around the term AI very casually, and it's causing confusion. It's also making a lot of people feel like they're getting left behind. My guest today regularly discusses AI and marketing, which is why I've asked him to join us today on the show to help uncover the most practical, realistic uses of AI for a small business owner. Mark Savant is the host of the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast, and what he does is help business owners with their digital content. So, whether that means launching a podcast like this one or taking your existing Zoom calls and turning them into social media clips, he has the experience, the processes, and yes, the AI to make it happen. So, welcome to the show, Mark. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Same here, Jeffro. Glad to be in the house. Let's do it. Let's solve some problems today.
Let's do it. All right, but before we jump into some questions, I feel compelled to say something. As a computer scientist, I have to point out that ChatGPT is not true artificial intelligence. I know. It's a large language model that is effectively autocomplete on steroids. And the GPT acronym itself even tells you that. It stands for generative predictive text. So it's generating text that it predicts would come next in this conversation, right? It just happens to be trained on the entire internet, which is why it's so powerful. But for the sake of simplicity, we will still use the term AI throughout this episode. But I had to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, when Sam Altman was on the outs and being fired, there was all this speculation that that their software had become self-aware and they had actually figured out Q, this artificial general intelligence, this AGI, and that's why they had to let him go because they were too afraid. Turns out that's probably not the case, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's moving quick.
Well, it makes for great headlines, right?
That's That's for sure. That's for sure. Although, it's interesting. We talk about ChatGPT and these large language models, these predictive text mechanisms. When you start to see like the AI video, the AI generated images, it is shocking. It is unbelievable to see.
Yeah, and obviously there's still stuff to work out there because sometimes it's not really, it's almost plagiarizing other images. And obviously there's a ton of tools out there. Some are better than others at being more original. And so that's why it's hard to paint with this broad brush, right? AI is such a huge topic that it's hard to know what we're talking about, who we're accusing of what, and even for a conversation like this, where do we dive in? Some people get scared of it and others just embrace it. All, as it comes, I love it. And you've it seems like you've embraced it, right? So maybe can you let us know what sold you on AI in the first place?
Well, first you got to look at the numbers. I mean, the World Economic Forum anticipates 80 million jobs displaced over the next 12 months.
That's a lot.
Walmart is planning to automate 63% of their stores over the next 12 months. Walmart's the biggest employer in the United States, A, and B, retail is the number one employer in the United States. You're going to automate 63% of those jobs? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And then McKinsey, the largest consulting firm in the world, anticipates 30% of the global workforce displaced over the next 7 years.
That's
So
that's intense.
it's intense. I'm not saying you should be afraid, but you kind of should be afraid. In what I am really passionate about doing is kind of helping people like realize, slap you in the face, realize like this is here, this is real, this is not NFTs 2.0, this is like a real thing, and you definitely want to start adjusting and preparing for it now. It's going to change what you do in the SEO world and helping businesses show up on Google. It's going to be incredibly powerful for that. It helps with workflows, processes, trainings, onboarding, marketing, everything from that to news anchors. So everything is going to be impacted.
Yeah, and I almost don't like saying you should be afraid though, because you should be aware of this, right, and be prepared for it. And I think the reason a lot of people are afraid is because they maybe feel like they don't have other skills or other options. I mean, if I take a long term view, then I view it as a positive thing because that means we get real humans into jobs and roles where they actually get to do more human things, right? That computers can't do, be creative and come up with solutions that AI or automation can't really do at this stage, and that's a good thing ultimately long term. Obviously, short term, people still got to feed their families and stuff, so that's the scary part. But if you look at this now and start taking those proactive steps, like there's tons of courses online for free that you could level up your skill set, start a new career, whatever. This is a great jumping off point and kind of an impetus for you to do that. So maybe if people could take that mental shift and look at it as a chance to move forward rather than just the end of the world.
It's all about moving forward. Bad things will happen. We can't focus on the bad, but we can focus on what action we take. I cover a lot of that on my newsletter, AIupdate.ai, to say, hey, this is what's happened this week at AIupdate.ai. But so just within that context, when I talk about AI, I start moving so fast. I go down so many different. It's like it's endlessly fascinating. But there's a scene in Office Space where the Bobs come in and they see basically these business consultants, and all the employees at the organization are terrified because they think they're going to get fired.
Hmm.
Over this year in 2024, you're going to see the Bobs in every single executive building, every single commercial office place. They're going to have these AI training days, and they're going to be separating the wheat from the chaff. The people that understand AI and are adapting it and are receptive, they're going to be in a good position. The people that say, it's not for me, they're going to get let off. They're going to get let go. And so I do kind of worry about the people that don't adapt and adjust. And as a business owner, you're not going to be competitive with the guy down the street. And we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts on some of the stuff you can do. But like it, as a business owner, it is imperative that you start adjusting now, leveraging the tools. Some of the stuff is going to crap out and not work. Some of the stuff is going to be mind blowing.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be searching for right now is the time.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because as a business owner, you have to pay attention to it, right? You can't just ignore it. I know it's been a buzzword for so long now. A lot of people have started to tune it out, but this is a very good reminder that you got to pay a little bit of attention because it's not going away. And another thing that's kind of related to this, and I wanted to bring up with you, is how the world is becoming increasingly content driven. So what role do you see AI playing for business owners who are trying to keep up in this type of AI heavy content driven market?
It's completely necessary. And I'll give you a personal story. About a year and a half ago, I'm running my podcast production agency. We're generating content all over the place. And I got that dreaded message that no business owner wants to hear from a key employee. I quit. And I was like, oh crap. Okay. You're going to move to Spain. You're going to live your best life. Great. So, what do I do as a business owner? I pick up the slack. I start doing the work instead. I start filling in the gap until I can find someone else that can. I became immediately overwhelmed. I'm pulling out my hair. I'm working late nights. My wife isn't happy. My kids are missing me. And I'm like, what do I do? Well, I started incorporating AI into some of my workflows. And I saved 90% of my time in some of my job roles, in some of my tasks, 90%. And I was like, the world has changed. The world has forever changed. I trained my team. I started implementing more processes and in implementing AI into different SOPs. And then 4 months later, I quit my day job and I haven't looked back since. And so I think is more and more people start to have these like moments, these eye-opening moments where I just saved 90% of my time, or I just lowered my expenses by 35%. They're gonna be like, wow. And that's what I'm trying to do. Slap people with the fear, offer the solution so that you can adjust and be ready for these changes.
Yeah, and I want to point something out there. Like a lot of what you did was probably simple automation, right? We still are using this term AI, and I think automation is sometimes a little less overwhelming for people because all you're doing is you're mapping out a process that you do over and over, and it's tedious and time consuming. But if you can hand that off to your computer, your marketing software, then okay, that's where all that time goes. So, what can you talk about how to decide what things you should automate and which things you shouldn't, because some stuff is boring and repetitive and sure I don't need to touch it ever, but other stuff when you're interacting with humans, whether that's marketing outreach or customer service, how do you decide how far to go in that direction?
Well, quite frankly, I go hard in every direction just so I can figure out what's going to work and what's going to break,
Okay.
right? So I'm very receptive to trying things on myself and in my own business. If it works, cool. Let me share that with others. Um, but I mean, at least at the current iteration of where AI is at today, it's not finessed, it's not polished. It's, to your point, it's a predictive text mechanism. So sometimes it just says stuff that's weird or redundant or uninteresting. And so, at this current iteration, where I think humans play a vital role is using that to generate content, generating the images, generating the copy, but have the right people on the back end to smooth it out. Okay.
Right.
Um, and I'll give you a perfect example. There's some tools in the content creation world that will allow you to transcribe long form video and long form audio, summarize it, write it out, right? But which, by the way, used to take a ton of time, a ton of time. I have to listen to an entire episode, an entire podcast is 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. I'm writing notes vigorously. It's a very laborious task. Um, but by using softwares, we can transcribe that. It can give us key takeaways, suggested titles, descriptions, and then we have people come in on the back end and say this sentence is ridiculous. This link is incorrect. Like it's attributed the wrong business to the wrong person, and kind of cleaning things up. And so that's a place where you can save a lot of time on the back end. And by the way, these tools, because they exist, is to me one of the reasons why doing what we're doing now and having a video podcast is so powerful, because for 30 minutes a week, that's your entire week of LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. That's your newsletter. That's your blog article. It's your YouTube channel. It creates your entire digital media presence. Um, it's incredibly powerful when refined by the experts on the back end who are using these tools to their advantage.
Right, and it's all how you view it too, because uh, what I view it as is it's a very helpful tool, right? It's not meant to be sent out on its own yet, but like you said, it can save a ton of time. So I like to use it for boilerplate stuff, right? If you ever feel writer's block, just go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I need to write a blog post by tomorrow. It needs to be something about XYZ. Can you give me some suggestions?" It'll give you 10 different options. And then you can ask it, okay, hey, I like number three. How could I start that? It'll give you a sample. And you're like, okay, let me let me start edit. And like now you're into it, right? Now you're editing it, making it sound like you've got your own ideas. Like no more staring at the blank page. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, that writer's block, or in your field where you're doing web SEO and web development, and you're writing some code. Like it writes code so fast. For me, I don't even know where to start with code, so I hire a company like yours to say, hey, write my website, but it just makes you much more efficient. You're in, and by the way, people are like, oh. Well, if it's not taking you as long, I shouldn't pay you as much. No, if it's not taking someone as long, you should be paying them more because they're getting you the result faster. So it's kind of this inverse. I want the result yesterday, not 3 weeks from now, which is what it would look like for coding in the past, what it looked like for editing in the past. Now we could just get a lot more done at a much higher quality, much faster.
Right. Chris Do talks about that, the future. I don't know if you've ever heard his channel, but a lot of people say, oh, yeah, if it takes you that, I should pay you less if you do it faster. I'm like, no, no, you're valuing the wrong thing. The
Right.
expertise is what makes it go faster to get a good quality product, because otherwise you're rewarding slow effort. Because I could drag something out a long time if I just want to get paid more, right? Sure, if that's what you're telling me you want to do, I'm happy to oblige. But yeah, so there's that kind of mental block there, I think. So let me get us back to the AI stuff. So there's so many tools out there. We've talked a lot about ChatGPT, but if you hop on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, you get people saying, "Hey, here's the latest, AI tools that I use to do XYZ. Here's the top 4." And you watch it and you're like, "Wow, I've never heard of that one. Oh, that looks cool." But you can get sucked down the rabbit hole with any of these different tools and find out which one's good, which one's easy to use, which one's free. And before you know it, you've spent all this time trying to generate a video and you're like, I actually don't need that for my business. Why did I do that? So, how do you figure out which AI tools to spend time on without going through all this trial and error?
There's like 2,000 plus tools coming out every week. And some of them are great, some of them are completely crap. Others are a great idea, but bad execution. So what I do is I'm looking and I'm communicating, finding out what people are using that works. I'm testing it myself, say this works. But at the front end, what we need to do is we actually want to identify, like, what do we actually want to use the AI and automation for? Every business owner should plan time. I did this with my staff just this morning. The entire team, we got together and we had a paid AI training day. And we sat down and we say, how are you using AI in your workflow? You're using it this way, cool, and they can disseminate that with the rest of the team, so we can find stuff that's actually working. Because spoiler alert, your team is already using AI already. Find out what they're doing that works, and then excise whatever doesn't. Um, every business owner should have standard operating procedures. How do you handle incoming phone calls? How do you handle complaints? How do you handle marketing or someone leaving a 5-star Google review? And you start breaking down all those steps in the process, and you can say, okay, staff, does this take you a long time? Yes. Well, maybe we can outsource that or automate that using something like Zapier and ChatGPT, or we can use some transcription tools or graphic image tools. So I think it starts with identifying problems that you want to fix, and then using your team as an input to figure out what is driving them nuts every day and how you can try to offload some of that.
Right. And this is a one-time investment for the most part, right? You spend a little time, identify some places you can optimize, and then you spend a little time to create a workflow, right? And now every day you're saving an hour. Maybe you only spend 5 minutes maintaining it here and there instead of an hour every day doing the same tasks over and over. So it's definitely worth doing.
And it never gets tired. It never has a sick day. It keeps operating. It's a lot less expensive than human beings are, and it just empowers your team. So maybe instead of hiring that new employee, you can to implement these tools, which are much more scalable and can empower your team to be more efficient.
So what about someone who's brand new to AI? Maybe they're not even really that tech savvy. They don't have a big team yet to ask for help with this, and they're just looking for ways to kind of get out from under the pile of work that they're constantly doing. Like you mentioned, you're just doing everything yourself and feeling behind, but they want to use AI to help, get ahead. Where do they start?
I mean, my favorite tool right now is ChatGPT. It's incredibly funded. I would say, well-run organization, but they're the industry leader. They have tools, and depending on how far we get into this, it does image generation. It can read and review documents, photos, tables, spreadsheets, calendars. So you can just upload PDFs. You can create your own chat bots to attract new clients or provide more value to customers. So there's a lot that you can do within Chat GPT. Um, and if you're not sure where to start, it kind of depends on your business and what your goals are in your business. But to your point earlier, you're stuck in front of a blank page, you're not sure what to do. ChatGPT, write this out. You get, how many times, by the way, have you gotten an email from a customer and you're like, oh crap, I don't even know where to start with this. I
Yeah, all the time.
I don't even know where to start. Plug it into ChatGPT and say, um, this is who I am. This is my business. This is the problem that I've got. This is the customer. This is what they do. This is what they've just sent to me. What's a good way to respond? And we're not just going to copy and paste that response into ChatGPT, but we're going to use that as the jumping off point. We're going to put in our own vernacular. And what would have taken you 45 minutes to an hour before now takes you 4.5 minutes to 6. So
And
you've just
it can act as a filter too, so it takes the edge off if you're like, this is how many times I've told them this same thing, you know.
right,
Air out your grievances to
right.
ChatGPT. And I one other thing I wanna mention, like, obviously, you there's a lot of capabilities of ChatGPT. A lot of those are paid, and so if someone is looking into this and they don't wanna invest money yet, use the free version. You can still use ChatGPT to generate stuff without building a bot or doing those types of things. So you can get a feel for it, see how it works, and come up with ideas for how you can use it in your business before deciding, "Okay, this makes sense. I'm ready to pull the, trigger."
I mean, listen, you can, but like ChatGPT is the most powerful tool that we've ever seen in human history. It can pass the bar, it can pass the medical licensing exam, oftentimes with flying colors. It gets it aces SATs. It's so empowered. It's read every single book, it's watched every single movie, it knows every single TV show. It's the most powerful tool in the history of humanity, and it's $20 a month.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not
And
bad.
it's like it's not it's a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good deal.
It is, and, uh, I just think sometimes there's people put up their own reasons for not doing stuff, right? Making excuses. So this there are no excuses here, right? You could use it for free. You could use it for 20 bucks It's readily available. A lot of tools that you are already using, CRMs, are bringing in their own AI features, right? So stuff you're already paying for, you already have it at your fingertips. So there's really no excuse at this point. It's not going away. Just do it. It's going to make your life a
You
lot
don't
better.
it will. And just like with anything, when you first start something, it's going to feel awkward. You're not going to get the um, the final product that you like, but after you do it a few times, you're going to get better. Like the first time you're in the gym after New Year's is coming, this probably drops right after New Year's. The first time you're back in the gym, it's gonna hurt for a little while. After you get into a rhythm, then you're Arnold in the gym. You know what I mean? It just takes a
Yeah.
few reps to get a feel for it.
That's right. So what about, are there any other common mistakes that small business owners make when it comes to AI?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. There were a pair of attorneys up in New York City who were filing a lawsuit against an airline company. And they were using ChatGPT to do the research and write the brief. They got all these results. They sent it over to the airline company to review before court, and then they gave it to the judge. And they're like, "This is a bunch of fake case law. ChatGPT just I don't know what this is like gobbledygook." And they were reprimanded. They're dealing with some issues because what ChatGPT did, is it made up fake case law with fake references. And the attorney didn't do these attorneys. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do
Right.
proper validation. And even better, what they did, this is great. They asked ChatGPT, is this case law real? Is this legit? And ChatGPT's like, oh yeah, it's cool, no problem. You're good to go. Good enough for me.
So rather
So
than reading it and doing research, they just like copy pasted. Yeah, that's
yeah,
bad.
you got to double check. You got to double check the work. There was a journalist who was testing ChatGPT, I don't know if it's ChatGPT, but we were using an AI chatbot, and it's just kind of testing it. And after engaging with this chatbot for a few days, the chatbot came back to it and it said, "Well, you know that you're in love with me, and you should leave your wife and your kids and spend all your time with me." So these we we're in the early stages is what I'm trying to say. Is, just because it says it on the internet, just because you read it on WebMD, you have to do some due diligence. You want to work with an expert who can validate it, I think, is what I'd say.
Yeah, agreed. And just always have that human filter before hitting publish.
Yes.
All right. Well, Mark, we're coming up on our time here, but I really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us today. I mean, we could keep talking about this stuff for a long time. There's tons of possibilities with AI, and hopefully this conversation has sparked some ideas for the listeners. So, guys, if you're thinking about using AI in your business somehow, if you're thinking about launching your own podcast, or you want help generating more social media content with a limited amount of time, go to marksavantmedia.com, connect with Mark. He's a super awesome and helpful guy. Mark, are there any closing thoughts you want to leave us with today?
I'm just glad to be here. Pop open ChatGPT, empower your team, do the AI training day now, because you still have a chance to have a competitive advantage against the other companies in your industry. You still have the opportunity. Only 20% of the world has even heard of ChatGPT. So if you're listening right now, if you've made it this far, I would put you in the top 1% of AI adopters, just because you're interested and you're adapting. But just like with anything, it's in the execution. So take a few of these strategies, start working it, and execute, baby. You got this.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Thanks again for being on the show. And thanks to all of you guys for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.